Hey guys, in this series of videos I will be talking about the stories in the Best American Short Story Collection 2018 edition as edited by Roxanne Gay. These videos will be in-depth discussion, so they will contain spoilers for the stories that I discuss. I do plan on going through every story in this collection, so if you would like to join along with me, be sure and pick up this collection and then come read along with me. So stick around to see which short story I am discussing today and all of my thoughts on it. Hey y'all, it's Jen and welcome to my channel, Ifra's Inklings. Today's video is going to be discussing Boys Go to Jupiter by Danielle Evans. This was originally from the Sewanee Review, and it is featured in the Best American Short Story Collection 2018. This is a 20-page, 18-page short story, and this one's going to be really hard for me to talk about because of the subject matter that it deals with. I want to be sensitive to the subject matter and also do the story justice, but it's tough subject matter. So first, let's talk about the themes in here. There is teenage angst, there is grief, and how it is dealt with or not dealt with, and then there is racism. There's blatant racism, and then there is perceived racism, or unintentional racism, I guess would probably be a way to talk about it. So the gist of this story is there's actually a lot of different moving parts to this story. But the story starts out where we're introduced to Claire, who is just finishing up her first semester of college, and her dad has just moved to Florida with this new girlfriend, fiance, puppy, and she goes to Florida in between her break from college, and basically her life there is just to piss off puppy. Her mother passed away a few years ago. We learn that later on in the story, but Claire starts dating a boy, Jackson, to piss off puppy because, you know, that's what teenage girls do. And she's not real happy with the soon-to-be stepmom. And we learn that Claire doesn't have a bathing suit, but Jackson wants to go to the beach because it's Florida. And so he gives her a bathing suit that he bought for one of his ex-girlfriends, who he never gave the suit to, but it was a rebel flag. On the last day of her visit there with Jackson, he takes a picture of her in this rebel flag bikini leaning up against the back of his truck and posts it to social media. And she's tagged in it. She doesn't think anything about it, but it immediately gets picked up on Twitter by a suite mate of hers, or dorm mate, who happens to be black and is offended by her suit. She doesn't think anything of it. It's just a swimsuit, and really the only reason she's wearing it is because it kind of pisses Puppy off. And Puppy tells her she looks like white trash. She gets on a flight to head back home when this picture is posted, or back to the dorm actually, and this picture's posted, and so she gets to the airport and she gets back with 18 different text messages, and you know, we get this quote. It says she has 18 new text messages, most from casual acquaintances, the closest thing she has to a friend at Dennis College. The messages range from hostile to bewilderment, and it takes her a few minutes to decipher what has prompted them. A tweet from the account of the black girl who lives across the hall from her, which features the photo of Claire in the bikini and the commentary, "My hallmate just posted this picture of herself on vacation." So this is just a couple pages into the story when we get this set up. And Claire, being the angsty teenager she is, takes this and just perpetually makes it worse. You know, at this point in the story, I could have said, okay, maybe this was a little overreaction by the person. I can't really say she shouldn't be offended by it, but there are, you know, maybe there was something that should have been done beforehand besides taking it to the streets of Twitter for her to be dragged. You know, maybe a simple conversation. Hey, you know, this is kind of offensive. You know, what's going on here? Claire didn't post the picture herself. She didn't take the picture. Her boyfriend and casual boyfriend in Florida did. And it wasn't even really her suit. So it's not like she made a conscious choice to purchase the suit to wear. It was just one that was given to her because she didn't have one, kind of thing. So at this point, I could kind of, you know, make a case for it was just blown out of proportion, something innocent blown out of proportion. I personally wouldn't have made the choice to wear a rebel flag swimsuit. I wouldn't have made, even if it was the only thing I had, I would have just gone without a swimsuit or wore shorts and a t-shirt or something, personally. But, you know, at this point in the story, I'm thinking, you know, this is maybe not, you know, it's not as, everything isn't as it appears. But, as I said, Claire makes it entirely worse. Okay, at this point, she starts thinking about this, and she gets really pissed off about this tweet going around and kind of what she's accused of. And we learn a little bit about her life in Virginia before her mother died and before her father moved to Florida. Her best friend growing up was a black girl there in Virginia. She was extremely close to the family. She dated the brother for a little while. And so she's sitting here thinking, I'm not racist, my best friend's black, kind of thing. And so she perpetually gets pissed off, and she sits there, and then so what she decides to do, instead of going and having a conversation with this person across the hall who is upset by this picture of her in this Confederate flag bikini, is she decides to print off a Confederate flag, a photo of a Confederate flag, and write on the back of it, "Welcome back, I hope you had a great vacation," and slide it underneath the door of this girl's room. So this is the point where I'm like, okay, that's the way we're gonna go with it. Not wise there, dude. Not wise there, little white girl. Definitely an uncool thing to do. Definitely not the right choice. Definitely not the way to tell or show that you are not a racist asshole, because you just did a pretty racist asshole thing and lost all kinds of sympathy there. So then she goes to bed and wakes up to 354 voicemails and emails, and you know, it just blew up because she was being a racist asshole. And she still doesn't get it. She's like, y'all, fuck you. And so she decides to hang a Confederate flag from the window of her room. So there is a group on campus that is trying to help support her and help her through this new crisis, because of course at this point things have blown up around campus. She's kind of on everybody's shit list, understandably so. But there's this group that's all for the Confederate flag and showing your heritage and freedom of speech and all that. Although it's not really her heritage because she lives in Virginia. She's not part of the South or whatever, and her family was all from the North, so it's not really part of her heritage anyway. She's trying to play it off as freedom of speech and this edgy cool thing to do because, you know, heritage bullshit. But of course, she's still getting dragged on the streets of Twitter because that's what Twitter does. And in this case, probably rightfully so. She did a dick move. And then we get this story from one of her supporters. Says Cliff from Tennessee writes that when he was in college, his fraternity hosted an annual plantation ball for their sister sorority, and everyone dressed in their frilly historical finest. One year, he and his frat brother decided to cover the house's front lawn in thousands of cotton balls, so that when they posed for pictures on its steps, the college's mostly black janitorial staff could be seen in the background of the shot cleaning it up. Yikes. Come on, white people. What the fuck? And the sad thing about this is, I know this is a story. I know it's made up fiction. But this shit happens here in the South. This is nothing new here in the South. People still think like this and believe this and think that this shit is okay. And it's not okay. It's not cool at all. Not at all. And I think that's kind of where, I don't think they were meaning to be blatantly racist. And so that's why I said where I get the unintentional racism or the subtle racism from, because I think they just thought they were being funny, or that it would be kind of historical because South and plantation and cotton, and it's not cool. Not cool at all. Not cool. So then we get another story about Claire and her friend Angela, who is the black girl that she was her best friend in all through elementary school. She says it talks about in second grade, that was kind of when they'd been best friends since they were like 5, and in second grade is when she realized that Claire was black, and I mean not Claire, that Angela was black, and you know, that's about the age when kids start learning differences like that. But she wrote a poem for Black History Month. It says, most of the lines she had forgotten over time, the exception being the dubious couplet, I judge her for her character, and so I'm never mad at her. So the teacher liked the poem so much that she staged it for the school's February assembly, assigning them costumes. Claire, a stiff black and white patriot uniform, complete with the tri-cornered hat, and Angela, a keat cloth dress. For the next 3 years of elementary school, they are dragged out to recite the poem every February, a performance that Angela's mother permits only after mandating a costume change. And again, that is one of those examples of the subtle racism, the unintentional racism. I don't think unintentional is the right word that I'm looking for there, but it's not the blatant racism that you expect when you think about racism. It's these underlying undertones where you get things like that costumes that they put those children in, but because I don't think people realize that that is racist, and that shows the racism there, and it's not cool to do. It's not cool. It's not historically accurate. I mean, maybe it is historically accurate, but it's still not cool to do. It's still showing the racism. But I'm not trying to make excuses, but I just don't think that a lot of white people realize that that is still racist. It's not, even though it's not the blatant racism, like calling someone the N-word, or putting things like nooses with mannequins hanging in front yards, or burning crosses into yards. Those are the blatant racism things, where these other aspects are not. It's more the subtle racism. So at this point in the story, we get the back history of Claire. We get the story of Angela and her brother and her mother and Claire's mother. Angela's mother and Claire's mother got sick at the same time. One with breast cancer, one with something else. I can't remember what Angela's mom was sick with. Maybe she had the breast cancer. But anyway, their mothers got sick at the same time. They spent many years in the they spent time at the hospital and bonded that way. That is when Angela's brother and Claire hooked up. Aaron was, they kind of helped each other through that time. They weren't really dating, but they were sleeping together. And Claire's mother ended up dying, where Aaron and Angela's mother survived. And Claire became very bitter about that and stopped talking to Angela and Aaron because she couldn't deal with that grief. It wasn't fair that her mother died and their mother didn't. Even though Angela's mom treated Claire just like another sibling, and Claire thought of her as, Angela's mom treated Claire just like another daughter, and Claire thought of her like another mom. It wasn't the same because she wasn't physically, there wasn't that physical bond there, motherly, there wasn't the genetic bond there. And so it really took a toll on the friendship once Angela's mother survived. And Claire never really dealt with the grief of the loss of her mother. And we find out that Claire, you see this pattern with Claire turning to sex as an escape from the pain that she's feeling. She does that with Jackson in the beginning. She doesn't want to deal with the new stepmom, and she thinks her dad is replacing her mom, and is really bitter with her dad, so she turns to Jackson for sex there, and she turns to Aaron for sex too, which is not a healthy coping mechanism at all. So Claire is brought in front of the dean of students, the university ombudswoman, her advisor, and the vice dean of diversity. And she's just being a total and complete bitch in there. At one point, she says, that they're asking her to take the flag down that she's posted in her bedroom window or dorm room window, and she's like, we can't really force you to do it, but it's not cool to do. Your other students are feeling harassed, and we get this exchange, and I'm just like, oh, yikes. And this is something that you hear a lot from white people. When, this is an argument that happens a lot. Claire says, what harassment? The threat you slipped under Miss Wilson's door, says the vice dean of diversity. I threatened her to enjoy her vacation and feel welcomed back. You left a Confederate flag postcard under her door, says the omnibus woman. Aside from the fact that the image itself, sent to a black student in the place where she lives, could be construed as a threat on its own, you knew already that Miss Wilson felt distressed by the imagery and was wary of your affinity for it. She reasonably construed it as a threat and requested that the university relocate her. A threat of what? That I was going to legally enslave her, succeed from the hallway, declare war on her, and then lose? Please take this seriously, says her advisor. I only knew that she was distressed by the flag because she put a picture of me on the internet to harass me. When is her disciplinary hearing? Yikes. So then we get the story of Aaron and what happened with Aaron. Another grief, another loss that she hasn't dealt with properly or at all. And she makes this statement. It says, grief has a palatable quality, and it is all she can feel unless she's making an active effort to feel something else, which is why she drinks and why she has sex with whoever she wants, as a way to numb the pain and to feel something different. So Claire's drunk at this party. I think it's her senior year of high school. Aaron is on break from college because he's 2 years older than her and Angela. Her and Angela haven't talked in a while because she's can't get over the fact that Angela's mother's still alive and hers isn't. So Aaron was like, do you want me to call Angela? He sees her drunk and he's like, you need to not be here. Let me take you home, whatever. And she's like, no. They have an exchange, and she finally agrees to let him go home. And the friend that she came with, her boyfriend sees this exchange. So he carries her out. He pulls her out of her car. She tries to get in the driver's seat to drive. So he pulls her out of her car and gets in. And so we get this story. And I just think I need to read this part of the story because I don't want to get it wrong. It says, the person yelling is Serafina's current boyfriend, who is pissed that Serafina went to her ex's party and invited him as an afterthought. Claire knows him, but not well. He's a little buzzed from pre-gaming, but mostly he's angry. So when he sees, as he tells the police later, a huge black guy pulling Claire out of her car and rummaging through her purse and driving her away, he is alarmed enough that he and his friends get back in the car and follow Claire's, alarmed enough to call the cops while they're driving. Claire sleeps through it at the time. Aaron, unnerved by the car behind him, flooring the accelerator. Seraphine's boyfriend tailgating, flashing his bright lights. Then the car full of boys pulling alongside them, his friend throwing a soda bottle and yelling at Aaron to stop. Aaron only goes faster, losing them for a moment. Then, less than a mile from their houses, turning onto Cleveland Street at such a speed that he spins out and the car flips into the trees. Claire wakes up, vaguely, to sirens, and then for real in the hospital, where she has a concussion and a hangover and a starring role in someone else's rescue story. Aaron is dead. By the time Claire is awake enough to be aware of this, it has already been determined that he was not a stranger, that he was just above legal limit, and that people saw him chase her out of the party after she screamed, that she was passed out in her own car. The people who give him the benefit of the doubt mostly feel themselves to be monogamous. He should have just pulled over and explained, Serafina will say, sadly, a few weeks later, and Claire will nod, and Serafina will be quoted saying that in the paper, then, when the Post runs the article about the accident's aftermath. Miss Hall will tell the reporter that a black boy doesn't get out of the car at night in the woods for a car full of angry white boys in Virginia. Claire's father will read the paper and say it's not the 1950s. So, we see this a lot these days. Yeah, it's not the 1950s, but that doesn't really mean anything has changed much. You know, black boys are still getting killed by white boys all the time for things like this. He didn't know these people. They were angry. It was a situation blown out of proportion and racially profiled, probably. Could it have happened if it had been, a big burly white boy that had been seen pulling her out of the car and rummaging through her purse? Sure. It might have happened that way too, but it's less likely. It's probably because he was black. So they have a town hall at the school to talk about Claire's decision, so that the student body can talk about Claire and how it makes them feel and who supports who. And there's like an open mic, and there's note cards and things like that. So the story of Erin and her connection to his death has been brought out by the bloggers and Twitter and all of that. And plays a part in kind of this situation as well, because, you know, everybody pulls up past history. She's given tips at this. She's not supposed to talk about Aaron unless someone brings him up. She's supposed to say accident as many times as possible. She's supposed to point out that one of the generals in the Confederate Civil War, one of the Confederate generals sent his own personal doctor to save the lives of as many soldiers as possible, a lot of them being black. You know, she's supposed to talk about this is her heritage and all that. So she gets there, and there is a handful of students that sit together, of black students there, and they never say a word at all. They never come to the mic or anything. They just, about 10 minutes in, they just put their postcards down and stand up and walk out quietly. And then, and Claire doesn't know how to react because she came prepared for an argument. But she doesn't know how to deal with this silence. And so Claire was going to talk at the end, but, you know, everybody kind of walked out. There wasn't that argument to be made, so to defend herself. And the story ends on this line. There are still 10 feet between her and the echoing sound of her own voice, telling her that she can still be anybody she wants to. So, do I think that Claire is a bigoted, racist asshole? Ultimately, no, I really don't think she is. I think she fell into this, the kind of the drama of the situation, and she took it too far because she didn't know how to deal healthily with her own grief and her own pain, and how to respond to someone else who she unintentionally inflicted pain on. And I think that she kind of took it too far. I think she saw a way to create drama and ultimately kind of hurt herself. And I think she ran with that, even though that was the wrong direction. I don't think that she, in this story, that I don't think Claire is actually, you know, a racist asshole. She did racist things, said racist things, perpetuated racism and racial hurt because she was hurt and grieving, and so she lashed out with it. But I think at the end of the story, she realizes that she can change and that she can be the voice, and she can change who she is and not be this person that she has now projected herself to be. Because I don't really think that's who she is anyway. But I think that she knows at this point, or has learned at this point, that she can take that and turn it around and be somebody different. Be the person that Angela and Aaron and Angela's mom would have been proud of, and her own mom would be proud of too. She didn't have to be this bitter person who is hurting and not dealing with the grief of the loss of her mother and of her best friend Angela and of Aaron. And I think she can turn it around. So, yeah. That is what I got from this story. I don't know. I hope I explained it well. This is kind of a tough subject matter to talk about. It's tough for a white person to talk about racism. It just is. So I hope I did it justice explaining what feelings I got from this and why I thought the way I did about it throughout the story and in the beginning. I guess that's it. If you've read this story, let me know what you thought about it. Did you pick up on anything? Did you have the same feelings that I did? Did you catch the subtle racism, the blatant racism, the unintentional racism that I did? I know that's probably not the right wording that I'm looking for there. But it's more ingrained racism than unintentional. Maybe that's the word I've been looking for. So, if you've enjoyed this discussion, you guys know what to do. Please give me a thumbs up. Go and hit that subscribe button over there. And be sure and leave me a comment. If you don't have anything to talk about specific to this story, then be sure and just leave me an emoji or say hello. I would be very interested to know if you did read this story, though, what you thought about it, and have a discussion down in the comments below. Especially this story. This is a story that I'd really like to talk about with other people and kind of get other people's perspective on as well. More so than a lot of the other ones. Obviously, I always want to have different perspectives, but this one is specifically, it really lends itself to discussion. So, yeah, that's it. And until the next short story discussion, I will talk to you later. Bye.